Hello and welcome to Prince on China column. So this week I dug into Chinese discourse. What are Chinese talking about the protest in India that just got over last week? So the Cockroach Janta Party, or abbreviated as CJP, protest have attracted a surprising amount of attention in China. When we talk about Gen Z protest, we talk about, and we have seen protest in South Asia and a number of other countries, but not really in China. So, since it has attracted a lot of considerable attention in China, it also shows us that how China is viewing India and the youth in India and how they are actually cherishing what we are experiencing in the name of democracy. So, Chinese commentators, Chinese online discourse is interpreting the protest in India as a sign that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is facing growing political pressure, particularly from India's younger generation. And across Chinese media, academic discussions, and social media platforms such as Weibo, Jiho, and WeChat, the protests are being framed as a challenge to the political narrative that has underpinned the Modi government's popularity over a decade. Prime Minister Modi administration just completed 12 years of its administration. So in China, it is being seen as a challenge to the 12 years and the stability that Modi administration has seen. On Weibo, hashtag about large-scale protest in India's capital attracted millions of views. A widely shared Weibo post declared that India is in turmoil again. Another commentator wrote that the Indian government had conceded that the victory of the so called cockroach youth had shattered what they described as a long held illusion surrounding Prime Minister Modi. So, whether or not that assessment is accurate is another question, which is, of course, being painted by the protest in India, but it tells us something about important about how China is interpreting developments in India. And many Chinese commentators argue that the controversy surrounding the Chief Justice comparison of unemployed youth to cockroaches tapped into something much, much deeper. They believe the protests are a reflection of genuine frustration among a generation struggling with unemployment, job opportunities, and mobility, social mobility. So that framing appears repeatedly across Chinese online discussion. Some users argued that dissatisfaction had gone far beyond the exam paper leak. Instead, they suggested the protest represented broader discontent with the Modi government itself. And one of the more detailed analysis came from Chan Cho, who is a doctoral researcher at Fudan University and a member of its South Asia Studies Group. She described the CJP protests as one of the most serious political challenges Modi has faced during his 12 years in office. The idea behind this analysis is that the generation that grew up under the BJP no longer sees the party as the force promising change. Instead, it is now the incumbent government increasingly judged by its performance rather than its promises of new skilled India, Viksit Bharat, developed India. So Chan also pointed out that the Modi's administration, Modi's own rise to power benefited from anti-incumbency sentiment directed against the Congress party, and in fact, the recent election win in West Bengal was also one of the outcomes of the anti-incumbency sentiment. So, according to her, that same political dynamic may now be turning against the BJP. And for many Chinese observers, this is just not about one protest, and they're actually seeing it as a movement. And in a number of commentaries, they have actually referred the protest as a movement. So, in the view of many Chinese commentators, this is demonstrating what they see as deeper tensions beneath India's rapid economic growth. And number of commentators have identified major weaknesses, obstacles for Modi government, and one such commentary talked about three major weaknesses of Modi administration and how the protest came into being. First, they argue that economic growth has not produced enough employment opportunities for young people. Second, they point to what they describe as a gap between ambitious policy making and implementation on the ground, and the issues that are being cited on the In such commentaries are the Farm Laws, the Citizenship Amendment Act, and of course the labor reforms that have seen a number of protests in the past decade as examples of the limits of centralized policy making. Then the third weakness, as they argue, is that the repeated irregularities in competitive examinations, and this has now weakened trust in institutions in India. And since government examinations remain one of the most important pathways for social mobility, for employment opportunities, for assimilation, integration, the Cockroach Janta Party evolved from an online joke into a symbol of broader youth frustration. So these are some of the examples that they have cited in the work, in the commentary, in the discussion that I've seen around the Chinese discourse and discussion about the protest in India. But there's another aspect that has been discussed on the internet, and that is the government's response. A commentary published by Guancha argued that restrictions on the CJP's social media presence on their online accounts, it did reflect political anxiety within the BJP government rather than the confidence. Then another analysis published through a WeChat account argued that Modi's real concern is not the online political party itself, but the millions of young people expressing frustration behind it. And the author highlighted India's demographics, that nearly half of India's population is under the age of 25, while Gen Z alone exceeds 350 million people. And if youth grievances continue to accumulate without political expression, without any solution, the commentator argues the CJP may represent only the beginning of a broader trend, and it became a much bigger movement. And now, with the 2029 general election approaching in years to come, they suggest that this could become an important challenge for the BJP, which has historically enjoyed considerable support from younger voters. And at the same time, Chinese observers also recognize an important limitation of the movement. And they say that unlike established political parties, the Cockroach Janta Party has no formal organizational structure. So there was some level of chaos that was also experienced. There's no leadership hierarchy, there's no political machinery. So its supporters are united primarily by shared frustration, by emotion, rather than a common political agenda and a program. So, according to Chinese view, this can generate powerful momentum online and even offline, but sustaining a political movement over time would require organization along with emotion as well. Finally, as I started the uh, my commentary with this idea that there is a lot of interest in Gen Z protest in South Asia, in China, but there is an interesting irony in all of this, and that is Chinese commentators have devoted considerable attention to India's Gen Z, their political participation, their dissatisfaction with government institution. So the entire democracy dance that we are seeing in India. Yet, one question that is largely missing from these discussions and Chinese discourse: how does China's own Generation Z express political frustration? Where are they even existing? Where are their ideas? How do young Chinese respond when they feel excluded from economic opportunity or dissatisfied with official institutions? So, those questions rarely appear in the commentary. I haven't really found anything concrete on the Chinese Gen Z and their expression of political uh, exclusion. So this is something that is totally absent from the discourse in Chinese popular media. So while Chinese observers see CJP protest as a test of India's political system, and in fact a litmus test for Modi's controlled governance in years to come, the discussion also raises a broader question about political expression in China itself. And perhaps that is the most interesting takeaway of this entire debate of the political awakening of Gen Z in global south, in Asian countries. But of course, the Gen Z in China, the discussion about Gen Z in China is entirely missing from this debate and discourse. Thank you for watching.